Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Worst to Best album series. Today I am doing the Beatles, probably the most legendary band of all time, with an absolutely incredible discography. Lots of people have done this and I'm always really intrigued and interested to see people's rankings of the Beatles albums because everyone hears them differently and everyone feels differently about them, and it's always fun to chat about the Beatles' amazing albums. So as always, please let me know what your favourite Beatles album is in the comments and if you agree with my ranking or not. I feel like I'm definitely more of a fan of the later Beatles stuff. It just kind of suits my tastes more. But I am still a fan of the earlier stuff, and I think it's quite hard for me to say anything too negative about any Beatles album because they literally changed the world with their music. The cultural impact and the cultural significance of this band is not something I think we should dismiss or diminish in the slightest. And that's kind of why I feel like a little bit protective of them, I guess. I don't really take kindly to people calling them overrated and things like that. It's kind of like if you're calling the Beatles overhyped or overrated, I'm gonna assume you really don't know anything about music, because that's not even slightly true, but I'm not going to rant about that now. Let's just get on with the video. So in last place for me, number 13, I'm going to put Beatles For Sale. Honestly, I think the first 5 Beatles albums are fairly similar in terms of songwriting. There's a lot of songs about love and girls and that kind of thing, so it was quite hard to rank them. When it comes to the later albums, I've got clear favourites, so I re-listened to them all, and I would say that Beatles For Sale is probably my least favourite out of the entire discography. I obviously do love the classics from this album, like No Reply, 8 Days a Week, Rock and Roll Music, but the other songs just don't really stand out to me as much, which is why I've had to put it in last place. Next up, number 12 is going to be With the Beatles, kind of for the same reasons as Beatles For Sale. I think a few of the songs sound a little bit samey, and there's just a few too many covers and filler songs for me. They really were churning out albums in these early days, weren't they? So I think a lot of them kind of can merge into one. But there are obviously some amazing songs on this album, and my top 3 would probably have to be Don't Bother Me, which I believe was written by George, All My Loving, and Not a Second Time. Still an amazing album, just not my favourite. Next up is good old Yellow Submarine. I know a lot of people put this last and it's kind of well known as the worst Beatles album, but I had to be true to myself and rank these in order of how much I personally enjoy them and how much I personally listen. And I really do enjoy this one. Obviously it only has 4 new songs, we know that, and it's basically a soundtrack for the Beatles animated film of the same name, which means the whole of the second half of the album is basically a film soundtrack. And I'm pretty sure the Beatles didn't even play on it, but I personally just really enjoy it. I'm super into that kind of thing, and I really love George Martin's compositions, and I actually genuinely do reach for this one fairly often. I can't even lie. Some of the instrumental tracks are actually so dreamy and beautiful. My personal favourite is Sea of Time. It also reminds me of my childhood and has lots of good memories attached. And then of course Hey Bulldog is on this album, which is hands down a top 5 Beatles song in my opinion. So now we're in the top 10, and 10th place for me is going to be A Hard Day's Night. This is a fantastic album and I am obsessed with the album cover for this one. It's definitely a special one for me. The title track, A Hard Day's Night, is obviously just a complete classic, and the song And I Love Her is one of my favourites as well. I love Paul's vocals on the song Things We Said Today, and there really is some great songwriting from Paul and John here. I feel like they were really honing in on their craft in this album, and I think it's also the first album the Beatles released with no covers. And the songs are really great, catchy choruses, upbeat, fun songs, and yeah, it's just a great album really. So next up for me is going to be the Beatles' debut album, Please Please Me. I absolutely adore this album. It's definitely a personal one to me because I know a lot of people rank this a little bit lower and some people aren't really fans of it. It really does mean a lot to me. I have some great memories that I associate with this album. I feel like everyone remembers the first time they heard the Beatles. It's like a pivotal moment in so many people's lives. And the first Beatles song I ever remember hearing was I Saw Her Standing There. And that was when I was a lot younger, and I've always loved it. So I've always just kind of held Please Please Me in higher regard, I suppose. And it, again, is just full of really, really great songs. Misery, Please Please Me, Love Me Do, Ask Me Why, Twist and Shout. It's just a delight. Next up, in 8th place, we've got the album Help. I mean, what can I say about this album? The opening track, Help, is just a fantastic tune. I adore that song. Another Girl, love that song. Ticket to Ride, outstanding. And then obviously the big hit Yesterday was on this one, which of course is one of the best songs ever written in the history of the world and an absolute timeless classic. But I think my favourite song on this album, and one of my favourite Beatles songs of all time, is I've Just Seen a Face. The chorus is just fantastic and I love the guitar on that song. For me, Help was a massive step up from the albums that came before it, and it's definitely my favourite out of those sort of early Beatles era. So now we're moving on to what I always see as kind of the second era of the Beatles. They really stepped up their game and changed their sound. And my 7th place choice is gonna be Let It Be. For me, this album is a little bit all over the place. I think it's tainted by the sort of negativity that was surrounding the band at the time. It isn't as experimental and out there as some of the albums that came before it. But having said that, you just cannot ignore some of the incredible songs that are on this album. Let It Be, The Long and Winding Road, I've Got a Feeling, Get Back. There really are some absolutely incredible songs on this album and some really, really strong lyrics. So overall, this is a great album and one that puts me in a great mood whenever I listen to it. Especially the song Across the Universe. It's probably my favourite from the album. I really love that track. Now in 6th place, we have got Rubber Soul. This was where the Beatles changed up their sound a little bit, and because of that, there's some really experimental songs on this album. I believe this is the first album where they used the sitar on a song, and those Indian music references started to make their way into their music, which by the way, I'm a huge fan of. And it just makes this album really, really interesting to listen to. Some of my favourite songs are Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, I'm Looking Through You, and In My Life, but there isn't a bad song on this album, to be honest. Next up is maybe going to be an unpopular opinion because I know a lot of people love this one and rank it really highly, but 5th place for me is Revolver. I really do love this album a lot. I think it's absolutely fantastic, but I think it's just a personal thing that this one hasn't connected with me as much as some of the other ones that I'm going to talk about, but it's still a great album. It starts off really strong with Taxman and Eleanor Rigby, and it really keeps that momentum going with songs like Dr. Robert, Here, There and Everywhere, For No One, Got to Get You Into My Life. I love that song so much. All these absolutely incredible songs, but my personal favourite from Revolver is the song I'm Only Sleeping. I think it's so beautiful and dreamy and I just really love the lyrics. Yeah, Revolver is a super consistent album, to be honest. There's a great mix of songs on there, but it's got a really consistent and coherent sound, and yeah, I just love it. In 4th place, we've got Magical Mystery Tour. I just had to rank this one highly. I really love it and I've been listening to it a lot recently, and it's made a huge leap up my list because you just cannot deny the songs on this album are out of this world. Every single song brings something really special to the album, and it's such a magical experience to listen to it from start to finish. The production is fantastic as well, so crisp and perfectly polished, which I love. I love listening to this one on vinyl, and as I said, there are just so many classics on this album. I love the song Flying. Obviously Strawberry Fields Forever is just what a song. Penny Lane, of course, All You Need Is Love is so uplifting. But for me, the crowning glory of this album, and probably one of the best songs ever, My Beloved, the one and only I Am the Walrus. I can't even put it into words how amazing that song is, but I'm sure you all already know. Okay, top 3, here we go. This was a really tough choice because any of these albums could be my favourite at any point. All 3 of them are incredible, but my 3rd place pick is gonna be the White Album. So this is obviously a double album and it's not perfect by any means. There is a little bit of filler on this album, but I just love it. When I listen to this album, even now after so many years, a lot of the time I'm just sitting there in disbelief at how good these songs really are. It's genuinely crazy to me that this came out over 50 years ago because it just hasn't aged a day. It's timeless, and the talent of those 4 men is nothing short of unbelievable. Anyway, I'll keep it short and sweet. You guys know the deal. It's a White Album, but my top 3 tracks are Helter Skelter, the continuing story of Bungalow Bill, and Mother Nature's Son. So my second favourite and my second place Beatles album is gonna have to be Abbey Road. I adore the album cover. It's probably one of the most iconic of all time, maybe after this one, of course. I love all the songs, obviously. For me, I think that Abbey Road is probably the Beatles album with the best songs, and it's home to so many of the best and the most well-loved Beatles songs. Come Together, Something, Here Comes the Sun, You Never Give Me Your Money, Oh Darling. Like, I could literally list every single song on this album as an amazing, like, top 10 Beatles song. This album is so unique, it's so uplifting, it brings people together. Like, this music brings people together. It's just so important, it's just timeless, and I genuinely think that my grandkids and great-grandkids will be listening to Abbey Road. It's really just that good. So I'm sure you've guessed my number one now if you're familiar with the Beatles discography, which you probably are. My favourite Beatles album is my beloved Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This is just me in an album. Like, it really is my personality just meshed into an album, and that's probably why I love it so much. It makes me so excited to even talk about, because this album just has so much personal meaning to me, and it is home to my favourite Beatles song of all time, my number one. This never changes, it's been this way for years, and that is Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. That song is everything to me. I saw Paul play it live about 7 years ago when I first saw him in concert, and it was the most magical experience for me, and I've pretty much been obsessed ever since. But apart from Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, my other favourites are Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, She's Leaving Home, Fixing a Hole, Lovely Rita, and then of course A Day in the Life. To conclude, there is only one Sgt. Pepper's. There will only ever be one Sgt. Pepper's. No one could ever replicate it. I genuinely think it will go down in history as the greatest album of all time. And I truly believe that as it stands now, it is the most important album that's ever been released. So there you go. That is my ranking of the Fab Four's 13 albums. I really hope you enjoyed it, and please leave me your opinions and your rankings in the comments down below. I would love to see if you agree with me or not. And don't forget to subscribe, because I've got more Beatles content coming up. I'm currently working on my top 10 songs. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week for another video.